Hello, everyone, and welcome in. This is Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio. Day 3 of our new Sports by the Book here with myself, Alex White, and alongside my father, Kenny White, professional sports bettor. It's been a lot of fun these last 2 days. Today should be even more fun. We're starting off with the NFL. We'll hit that for about 30 minutes, talking a lot of numbers, few games that we do like. We're going to both give our top 10 power ratings after week 1. Try not to make too big of adjustments here because it is a marathon with this season. We'll also get to a few college football games. Baseball is still going on and WNBA. But enough of that. That is what today's show will look like for the next hour. How are you doing today and day 3 of the show?
Hey, good morning, Alex. Yesterday, I'm doing much better today than yesterday. Yesterday's word was aggravation, and maybe a little bit today, but I left yesterday. I rushed out of here after the show because I forgot to bring my charger for my laptop. And I was going to sit here and work for 2 or 3 hours. That went out the window. Get in the car, driving home, starts to scream at me. Driver's side rear tire low. Driver's side rear tire low. 26 PSI. Oh, no. I was right. I do have a nail in the tire and a slow leak. So I pulled over, filled with air. Went to a tire store, I won't name their name, completely packed, and not one employee in the lobby. So I left there. I went to one closer to my house, trusted the tire would make it. I get to Discount Tire. They were packed, but they were amazing and had 3 or 4 people in their lobby working. They had a person as you walked in the door, can I take your name and phone number to put you on the list so we can help you? It was great service. Someone came over 5 minutes later and we walked out, checked the car, and they said, well, we'll take a look at it, but it's going to be an hour and a half. All of this construction slowing down traffic, and hopefully it'll make it better one day, but I don't know. There's so much traffic, but everyone's getting flat tires. 3 people before me all said they had nails in their tires. I guess they're all over the road, but today it's 9/11. So we'll, mention that a tribute, they have the Tribute Center there in New York. It's amazing, just unbelievable. If you've never been there, you have to go. I went twice last year. It's just so amazing. So our prayers and wishes go out to the families of 9/11 for today. And it's the 23rd anniversary, but also driving here. I knew this morning when I walked out at 5 a.m. to my patio to work on today's baseball, it smelled like a campfire. And I thought, oh boy, here's the smoke from the California coming in. And it is entirely in the valley now. Visibility is about 1 mile at best, but people are driving like there's aliens in the sky. I mean, they're driving so poorly this morning. There was 2 accidents on the 215. I heard that the 95 was shut down. People just concentrate on your driving and not worry about looking around the sky. There's no aliens up there. It's just smoke from California, but the visibility is poor. And I was aggravated driving here. That's for sure. Because of the drivers.
Well, so if you are driving in Las Vegas, please drive safe and be careful because you're right. There's a lot of construction. And if you aren't focused on the road, we could have some more accidents and nobody wants that. So
what was your day like yesterday after you left?
My day was good. A lot of work. Just trying to crunch numbers and get ahead for week 3 of college football and week 2 of the NFL. You and I are in quite a few contests this year, so it's a constant checklist of getting plays that I like for each contest, and so that's basically it.
You reminded me, I was in a Wise Guy contest Mark Lawrence has every year. I need to put my picks in today. Glad you reminded me. It is a busy time. I had a staff meeting yesterday at the house. You weren't there, but I had 3 of my staff members, so the staff is building that there's 5 of us in Kenny White Sports, so company's getting bigger very quick. But I finally, I should say I got really 6 people because I have a data miner that has been working for me for about 1.5 years now. And he's on the payroll because he does tremendous work and he's written so many programs for me. But when I went in to do the NFL yesterday morning here to pull off all the stats from the box score from A to Z, it came out with 2023. And I changed the year on the program, and it worked for college this year for me, but it did not for the NFL. So he is 12 hours difference from me. So by the time Kawish got up, and finally got to working. It was late at night for me, and he finally got that over to us. You and I actually did it manually, scraped those stats that I needed, and then I was able to go through those box scores for the players and update each team's power rating. And I was able to get my ratings out last night. I'm working a day behind this week. So next week, it's going to be so much better that I'll have everything ready for college on Monday and everything ready for the NFL on Tuesday. Wednesday, we can just take the day off.
No. Wait.
Oh, we're working on Wednesday?
We'll be back Wednesday. Still other sports going on that we can talk about, and we'll be more than ready to give out some of our best plays for the weekend.
If we took the day off and still got paid, kind of like a holiday. We can't pull that off?
Probably not.
All right, we'll talk to Frank Nicotero about that. See if
Frank
can help us out.
I'm glad you brought up the NFL because we're going to start there and we're going to talk about some of those numbers that are going to help us throughout the season. First, a shout out to everybody who is in the chat because it is pretty active so far. So welcome to Joey B, JR, Nick S, and Keith Lyle, of course. So thank you guys. We appreciate you. We appreciate you watching. A lot of people, I was kind of worried about if you were venting and aggravation, but it's very relatable. And a lot of people understand where you are coming from, and they are okay with you having a few minutes to vent here. So let's get right into it. NFL time. Now, these are some of my favorite numbers that you provide on your power ratings. But first, we're going to start with the top 5 performers and the top 5 underperformers from week 1 in the NFL. Then we're going to get to your run numbers. And it's a small sample size after week 1, but I promise you, as the weeks go by, when we know who is a run-heavy team as opposed to pass-heavy, and we know the pace of play, this is going to help us with our totals, and we're all going to win lots of money betting on the NFL totals here. But let's start off with your top 5 performers from week 1.
Yeah, Alex, you're right. And these small sample size 1 week, and they will change, and you're going to see teams in the top 5 run heavy. Where are we going first? Performers?
Let's go performers.
Performers. Top 5 performers on my numbers from week 1. The New Orleans Saints came out on top. They were dominating in their performance, and obviously their opponent was not very good, but they really played well. So they came out top of my chart by 0.5 point. When I wrote down the top 5, I was like, are these really the top 5? The Vikings were number 2. Yeah, they beat the Giants, but they handled them. They dominated them. Even though they're a bad team, they did it, and they did it on the road. And bettors were right because the line opened the Giants' favorite, and it was bet to the Vikings. But the Vikings took care of business. Tennessee was another team that they took care of business. They played well. And my number 4 team is the Chiefs. Big win on Thursday night against Baltimore. And then on Friday night, the Eagles were my 5th performer. Now, when I went to the bottom 5, I realized that this does work. And I think you mentioned to me that Chris Andrews, the sportsbook director here at South Point, he does the same thing on every game. He gives a performance rating for that team. And after 6-7 weeks, that average performance rating kind of equals what the team's rating is. I've never done that. I like that. I'm going to do that and keep up with that this year. But when I looked at my bottom 5 performers in the NFL, I said the equation that I came up with works. So I believe in that top 5, the bottom 5. Carolina, they were terrible. I knew they were bad as it was, but Bryce Young, there were so many question marks about him coming out of Alabama with his size, his height, and his hand size throwing the football. He really struggled once again. He had horrible stats last year. He's definitely not the guy there. After one game, I'm going to say that. I just don't see it when I watch him play. The Giants, second worst team on the performance list. The Bears were number 3. They won, though. I got a feeling teams that perform well and win probably don't do well the next week. They were very fortunate with the block punt for a touchdown, scoop and score, and then the interception for a touchdown return. They have no business in that game. Tennessee was my third top performing team because turnovers are such a small sample size in games that it happens, 5% of the time, and they're very random. So, and they could go either way. So Bears, Washington at 87.5 was an underperformer, and the Arizona Cardinals, even though they competed against the Bills, was number 5 in underperformers for the week.
So top 5 one more time was Saints,
Vikings, Titans, which they lost. I got a feeling they may even perform better this week and get the W. Teams learn a lot more about themselves off a loss than a win anytime. I think Tennessee's really going to be upset about that and come to play. And who do they play?
They play the New York Jets. They are hosting.
Oh, boy. Jets off a tough game, Monday night game versus the 49ers. And have to travel again back-to-back weeks to start the season. And Aaron Rodgers did not look good. When I watched him, remember I said I wasn't even thinking about him being the quarterback. All I saw was a quarterback drop back and throw a couple times, and I thought, man, he's not very good. And I realized it was Aaron Rodgers. Said he is definitely only about 70%. Tennessee, Kansas City, and the Eagles.
Kansas City. Okay, so I was surprised that Tampa Bay did not make that list, but they did play a pretty weak defense as well.
They were right there, though. I think there were 6.
So I do want to ask you about Tennessee, though, really quick before we move on, and about that turnover, because Will Levis is prone to throwing balls in dangerous situations. So do you think that he will work on this? I mean, he was pretty fortunate last year in his first year. And remember, Jeff Parles and I had a guest on, Ed, I can't remember his last name, but he wrote this thing up about interceptions, and Will Levis was at the top of the list to potentially have more interceptions this year.
Because he has great arm strength.
Yes.
And they throw down the field with him. So he throws more deep balls. He throws more passes that are susceptible to interceptions than any other quarterback in the NFL because of that arm strength. Now, with that being said, I just want to double check one thing. I will say that Mason Rudolph will be the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. Ooh. I don't know what week, but Mason Rudolph is the better quarterback of the two. He will get the job. And Brian Callahan, the new head coach, these guys want to win right away. So I don't think it's going to take him long. He's a quarterback guy, and I think he knows talent, and I think that he's going to he'll go to Rudolph.
Another thing that I want to point out with your top 5 list, it might look different with other people because you did have the Vikings very low going into the season. That was one that I was a little bit skeptical on because of their wide receivers that they have. Justin Jefferson is definitely one of the best in the league. And Sam Darnold does have some experience in this league. So based off of that and how they did perform, that put them in your top 5 performers, wouldn't you say?
The Vikings?
Yes.
No, they weren't in my top 5. I didn't have them in my top 5.
Okay.
Yeah, what were you thinking there? Vikings, I had or the Minnesota Vikings. They're down a ways, I guess. Minnesota Vikings.
I'm
sorry. Wait a minute. They are. They're number 2. You were right. Oh my gosh. They were the number 2 performer. And that's, I didn't think that way, but because I really don't have a high rating on Sam Darnold. I think their quarterback play is below average. And I think their offensive line is below average. Their wide receivers are great, with Jefferson and Addison. They're tremendous. And then Aaron Jones, still one of the top backs in the NFL, but the offensive line and the quarterback play is the most, important thing on the field. So I have them one of the bottom teams in the NFL. Okay,
so that definitely helped their rating there for top performers. Let's move to top 5 run-heavy teams that we saw in week 1 and the percentage. Again, a small sample size, but what did you see from week 1?
As I mentioned several times, and I'll talk about it a lot, that even though it's a pass-happy league now and they throw the ball 57% of the time, 15 years ago they ran it 60% of the time. They did not throw the football like this. And that comes from Vince Lombardi back in the day, and he said, when you pass, 2 bad things can happen out of 3. Incomplete or an interception. Completion's the one good thing, but 2 out of 3 can go wrong. And that's the way football was played, but it has moved into the era of the passing game. And they throw. But when you go back and look, and you could go last 5-year stats, teams that run the ball the most, the top 5 teams, usually 4 of them are in the playoffs, and one of those is going to the Super Bowl. So you still need to be able to run the ball. Pittsburgh, the Steelers, we are in Steel City here in the South Point, 62% run, and a lot of that is Justin Fields also can run. He was really good throwing, too, 17 for 23. They just couldn't get the ball in the end zone. But they moved the ball between the 20s. They settled for field goals. They ran it a lot. I expect them to be, Mike Tomlin's teams always do run it about 50% of the time. So they are going to be one of the higher run teams. New England, 61%. Ramondre Stevenson had a great day, 25 for 121. Thank you, Ramondre and Patriots, for knocking out the Bengals of the Survivor contest, and that's why they beat them. They were able to run the football and play defense. You mentioned they had a top 10 defense before that game was ever played. New Orleans, 60% run. They got two good running backs with Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams. They shared the load. Buffalo ran at 57% of the time. That's Josh Allen in that mix, so that makes sense. Seattle, 55%. That's Kenneth Walker, the third, 20 carries for 103 yards and a touchdown last week. Geno Smith, they took care of business. Pass happy?
Yes.
And these, again, one-game sample, it's because you're trailing, you're going to pass more. You're winning, a la Pittsburgh, you're going to run more. So that's what happens. But when you're betting totals and you're betting a Pittsburgh Steelers, or you're watching the game and you want to make an in-game, you know Pittsburgh, when they have the lead, is going to run the ball. New England, when they have the lead, they're going to run the ball. Kansas City, Buffalo, New Orleans, those teams I mentioned today, Seattle, when they have the lead, they will run it, leading to unders for that game. Teams that are trailing, Cleveland, number one in pass, they threw the ball 73% of the time. The Giants threw the ball 69% of the time. The Rams, 69% of the time. And that was really by design because the offensive line was so beat up. They knew they would not be able to run the football when they had to. So Cooper Kupp could get open whenever he wanted to. I don't know, he caught 3,000 passes in that game. I don't know how he gets so wide open when when Puka Nacua is on the sideline and he still gets open. It's crazy. But they threw it 69%. Cincinnati, they were trailing. They had to throw it 67% of the time. Green Bay threw it 36% of the time. And what that list, pass happy?
You mean 63 for Green Bay?
64. I'm sorry, 64 for Green Bay. They ran it 36% of the time. That list of pass happy teams, 0-5.
0-5. Okay, I thought the Lions might be on that top 5, but they are such a well-balanced offense. But they do run the ball with Gibbs and Montgomery so well, which sets up their pass for Jared Goff.
Yeah, they are very well balanced. And we mentioned David Montgomery was a beast in overtime, and you have a runner like Gibbs, those two guys, it's a great combination, and they will, run the football, but they're not afraid to throw it, so you'll see them throw it.
We're going to go to our top 10 now going into week 2. I will start it off here pretty quickly, and then we will go to yours. I think mine is pretty I don't know. There's no surprises. Mine is very pretty. There's no real surprises. There is one on yours that I'm very curious and want to dive into. So number 1, San Francisco 49ers. We saw them against the Jets. Only a 4.5-point favorite. Made that look very easy. Controlled the game. Kansas City Chiefs. That one was a tougher game for them against the Baltimore Ravens. Got pretty lucky there at the end. But this is the best offense that we have seen from the Chiefs in a while, and their defense still remains to be top 5. Detroit Lions, I just talked about them, very well balanced on both sides of the football. Dan Campbell seems to have his best team of them all. Baltimore Ravens, this one is a little iffy sitting right there. I actually did not adjust the Ravens at all, though, because of the fact that they could have won that game if it weren't for that toe. So then that is when your power ratings, you would want to adjust the other way. I just left the Chiefs and the Ravens right where they were. Philadelphia Eagles, big improvements from this team from last year. You could tell this is much better fit offensive and defensive coordinators. New York Jets still sitting there at 6, and that is because my numbers, like yours, are based off of the team power rating, and you can ask Jeff Parles. If you look at this roster, I mean, they are loaded top to bottom in New York. The problem is putting it all together. We will see if that meshes this week. Houston Texans, they got even better than they were last year. Stephon Diggs and some other additions there. And CJ Stroud, couple questionable throws on his part, and they were trying to give that first game away, but I still think the Texans are in the top 10. Dallas Cowboys coming in at 8. A lot of hate and doubt for the Cowboys, but they looked very impressive on the road, playing against a tough Cleveland defense. And then at 9, I have 3 teams tied here right at 9. And then The next one under that is the Steelers, who is not far from them at all. But the Dolphins, Chargers, and the Bengals all come in there. Now, I think the Chargers might be a surprise for some people. They didn't play fantastic against the Raiders by any means. They capitalized on 2 mistakes that the Raiders did have. I just really like what I've seen so far from Justin Herbert, and I also like how Harbaugh doesn't depend on him too much. They use their run game, as we are talking about with these other teams. So power rating wise, I did have to move them up a little bit, and that put them tied with the Dolphins and the Bengals. Bengals moved down a little bit for me because that was a pretty rough game against the Patriots. But we will go to your top 10 and see what differences we have going into week 2.
I like your top 10 a lot, Alex. It was a very pretty top 10. And mine, I hope, is just as pretty. I mentioned the 49ers, before the year even started, that I thought this was the best NFL team that I've ever rated out. They are that good offensively and defensively. Kyle Shanahan, the last 5 years, has had 4 really tough losses, 2 Super Bowls and 2 conference championships. And he retains this entire nucleus. They're experienced and they're great. And a full season of CMC, he even missed the first game and they looked dominating. So I have them 4 points better than the Chiefs, who are my number 2 team.
Your top 10 is pretty if you look right up there at your graphic.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Very good.
Yeah, I got to look at my computer too. I have the ratings. I always say you can find everyone in the world's rankings, but with those rankings, you can't make a betting line. So that's why my product is power ratings, and you rank them from the power ratings. But you can go all over the internet and look and find ranking after ranking after ranking after ranking, but none of them tell you what the difference is from team 1 to 2. So everybody that looks at someone's rankings and they see the 49ers 1 and Kansas City 2, they're thinking it's maybe, if they put it in neutral, a 1-point favorite. Well, I tell you, it's going to be a 4-point favorite, and it probably won't be that high because Patrick Mahomes. But talent-wise, I know it's a 4-point favorite. If this game is pick, I'm betting San Francisco because they are going to get their revenge. And I'm going to add that revenge factor in too and make this game 6.5. That's how much I love the 49ers. Kansas City is great, though, still. They have Patrick Mahomes. They have Andy Reid. They do have a great defense, too. So take nothing away from them. They're probably going to get better and improve as the season goes on, and maybe they'll close that gap a little bit. The Detroit Lions, you mentioned Dan Campbell, 3rd year now. That's usually the charm. This is his 4th year. So he did improve that team in his 3rd year. Now in the 4th year, they're even that much better. Very experienced football team that has been in the playoffs, had the experience, has the taste. They want to get back. Number 4, the Eagles, tremendous offensively, but I have their defense a little underrated maybe. We'll find out. I don't think the defense is the greatest. They're going to have to make improvements there. Baltimore Ravens, number 5. John Harbaugh, one of my favorite coaches, has made a lot of people a lot of money in preseason. He's also made people money in the regular season. And I think Lamar Jackson's primed for a big year. I really do. I think he's at that experience point in his career. He's ready to do something big. Atlanta Falcons are my 6th team. That's the one you wanted to talk about. Raheem Morris, first-year head coach. I love what they put together. I'm a Kirk Cousins fan. A lot of people don't like Kirk Cousins. He loses the big game. Every time he's on TV, he loses that big game. They say, and maybe so, but the guy's got a lot of wins under his belt. He's a very experienced quarterback. He looked like maybe he wasn't 100% last week, didn't move real well, because I know he's got better mobility in that. I think he gets better. I love the run game. They've got the best running back, I think, in football, maybe at Bijan Robinson. Algiers is another guy. Their offensive line is tremendous. Tremendous offensive line. One of the best in the NFL. Their defense was very, very good. And the key to their defense, Justin Simmons, they picked him up, who's a Swiss Army knife defensive player, and he made a lot of plays against the Steelers. And the other guy, Matthew Judon, who came from the Patriots, is an all-pro player. When you're adding 2 all-pro players into an already very, very good defense, it made that defense that much better. So I am a big believer in Atlanta. I don't care that they lost game 1 against the Steelers. They are the Steelers are a very good football team. Steelers were well prepared. Steelers did a great job. Atlanta didn't allow a touchdown in week 1. Did not allow a touchdown defensively. This defense is really good. And when Kirk Cousins plays like Kirk Cousins, Atlanta Falcons are going to get a lot of wins this year. I have them at 11 wins, or even after a loss in week 1. Number 7's the Jets. And that even is with Aaron Rodgers and the way he looked. Still a very solid football team because that defense is great. The Cowboys and Texans I have tied at number 8. And then number 10, Cincinnati Bengals are still there, even off a loss, are my number 10 team.
So I want to go ahead and move to Thursday Night Football, and we can talk about what we each made this game. I don't think you're going to bet it. I think yours is very close to what the line is, but we can talk about it because I know that you did bump Buffalo up a little bit, and the Dolphins, you don't have them quite as high as me. Personally, I bet the Dolphins. I think that they are going to cover this number at home, and there's a lot of conversation about the Bills owning the Dolphins, and they have in recent games, but the advantage is to the Dolphins. They have 2 back-to-back games at home. Buffalo has to travel on a short week. Both these teams were very lucky to win in game 1, but they both were the better team in the second halves. I just think the Dolphins still have more pieces where the Bills, still uncertainty with the wide receiver room, probably going to be a downgrade from what they have had. He still has 2 really good tight ends. Josh Allen, that is, has 2 really good tight ends with Kincaid and Dawson there. But I just think that this Dolphins team is loaded, and I think their defense has gotten even better, which I know that you and Pete White agree with that as well. So I like the Dolphins in this spot. I made them a 4-point favorite at home, and I know that's not our usual 2.5, but adding in the revenge factor of them losing twice last year, I'm going with Miami.
Yeah, I like that revenge factor. And looking at, these 2 teams, I do have Buffalo right now 1 point better than the Dolphins. Both these teams kind of went down, I think. But for this week 2 game, I had the Dolphins 1.5 and 48. And again, I have to say it all the time and preface this that when I rate my players out and my teams out, I'm rating them out as midseason form. The NFL is not in midseason form right now. The first 2 weeks of the season is really preseason games for these guys. They're working their way into shape. And that's because they don't play in the preseason. They don't hit as much in practice as they used to. Again, everybody was in bed on Monday and couldn't get out of bed and then rolled into the complex that they're for their team and watched film all day and got treatment all day. This is another week like that. So my totals are a little high for this week. So I take 6 points off. I'm going to make the game 42. And I feel like I'm going to have a solid underplay in this game.
So we saw the Bills and the Cardinals is one of the highest scoring games that we saw in week 1, if not the highest. On the flip side, though, Jacksonville and Jags against the Miami Dolphins, very low scoring, slow, methodical game between those two that you would not expect with those quarterbacks and those offenses.
And amazing to look at what Mike McDaniel has done in 2 years in Miami, now 13-5 to the under in his home games, 13-5 to the under. They will run the football when they do get leads as well and run clock. But I feel like this is a playoff game again, and it goes back to last year, the last regular season game of the year in Miami, and Buffalo gets the win, and they win 21-14. They end up tying for the division, but Buffalo wins the division, the identical record, but Buffalo wins because of the 2-0 against Miami. Buffalo gets a home game. Miami goes to Kansas City. The Dolphins, they were prepping for this game. They're ready for this game. I like your play on Miami. I like my under a little bit more. 49 points is a lot of points in an NFL game. The averages just are not that high anymore. And this is a division game. The 2 teams that don't like each other. It will be a war. And it's a game that used to be more Buffalo Bills fans in the stands than Miami fans because Buffalo Bills people were in cold weather. But this early in the year, it's not cold there now. So I don't know how many are actually going to make this trip. They'd rather go to Miami in November when it's freezing and snowing and the weather's horrible in Buffalo. But Miami, the attendance and the fan base has grown over the last couple of years with McDaniels, the head coach, and Tua as the quarterback. So they have plenty of fans. there's a home edge, and I think that it's going to be very warm there too. So we got to check the weather. It'll be very warm, maybe some thunder showers, but it's going to be very humid too.
There we go. 2 plays for 1. I didn't even know that you had to play on the under, but I like it. Should mention last week in the standalone games, Thursday night, that Friday game in Brazil, Sunday night football, Monday night football, 3-1 to the over, which was pretty shocking because in the last few years, they have been dead unders. I think we'll see that even out a little bit in the next week or so because of the teams that we had spotlighted there. I mean, great offenses, veteran quarterbacks in those spots. You're not going to have that week in after week out.
Yeah, and you know what? Trends, as Jimmy Vaccaro says, don't pay the rent. And that's very, very true because you can't rely on trends because bookmakers are making adjustments to those trends to beat you. A quick story that goes back to me that I knew about this 35 years ago when my dad was publishing a weekly sheet. And he liked to tell stories in it. And the first weekend story was a friend of his who was a waiter and loved football was saving his money for the entire year for the NFL because dome stadiums had gone over 70% the year before. And he saved up $30,000 to go bet every domed game over. And he was betting, I think, he wasn't betting 2.5% of his bankroll of that 30,000. He was betting more like 10% of his bankroll on each game. The first 12 domed games of the year that year went 11-1 to the under. Oh. He lost all of his money in the first 12 games in the first 4 weeks of the season, just betting on a trend. Trends change all the time, and that's what's good about sports betting. That we use those trends to talk about. I don't use any of this information that I talk about to make a bet. I make my numbers. I trust the process. I trust my adjustments, and then I see my edge and I bet the edge. That would be pretty boring for us to come on and do that. So we try to come up with things to talk about. Trends are one of those things we can talk about. But first week of the year, 32-16 under the last 3 years was a little bit of an over weekend, I believe, this weekend, especially second halves. I believe second halves were 12-4 or 11-5 to the over in week 1, second halves.
I believe that. And I mean, part of it that you will bet on is really good coaching and quarterbacks you trust and important positions like that. But ultimately, yes, it is all about the numbers.
It's all about the numbers. And it's about the coach. You're right. And I like coaches that their teams play defense in whatever sport.
So do you have pace for us? I know it's a small sample size as well, but I just didn't want to flip over to college football before we finished our NFL talk. Okay.
For week 1, fastest paced teams. And again, since it is a small sample size, teams that are trailing are going to play faster. The Carolina Panthers are number 1, and they trailed the entire game. So 25.4 seconds in between plays. That's about 3 seconds faster than the league average. The Jets, they had to play fast, trailing against the 49ers. The Browns played fast. The Eagles played fast. They weren't trailing. That's just the way they're going to play. So put a star by that. You know what you're going to get out of the Eagles. An up-tempo offense with a below-average defense. That is going to be a good over team for a little while until the bookmakers make the adjustments on that. The Broncos played fast. I don't know if that is going to be their MO for the entire year, but they were the 5th fastest team. This is a surprising one. The Ravens were number 6, but I guess they were trailing against the Chiefs most of the game. Slow, plodding teams. In week 1, the Saints took every second off the clock they could, 35.5 seconds in between plays. The Tennessee Titans were number 2 at 34.3. The 49ers, who have been dead last in pace the last 2 years, were number 3, 33.1 seconds in between plays. Tampa Bay, 33 seconds, 33.1. And then Cincinnati, 32.4, which is another interesting one. Put a star behind that. You know how much they passed and threw the ball because they were losing to the Patriots, but their offense played extremely slow. Minnesota and Pittsburgh and the Raiders round that group off, which makes a lot of sense. I think the Raiders are a good under team this year. I think Pittsburgh's a good under team this year, and I think Minnesota could be a good under team as well. Those teams look like they're going to going to play a little bit methodical.
Wow, great information there, especially when you combine it with the run heavy or pass heavy teams. I'm shocked about the Rams and the Lions because that game felt, they really used the clock, especially the first half, but then I guess it sped up and went to overtime.
Yeah, but that still counts in my calculations. The Rams were 28.3, 10th in seconds per play, and the Lions were 15th at 29.3. So they were right about average. Average is 28.3. So the Rams were right on what average has been the last 2 years. So things have slowed down. Defenses have gotten better. Scoring is going down. And, that's just the way the league's going to be. Unders were very good last year, and I think that will happen. I haven't seen any rule changes. The kickoff was the only major rule change. We have 5 more yards now. What people talked about that kickoff change was with the better field position, that if you're going to start at the 30 and you have 4th and 1 at your 39, more coaches may go for that instead of 4th and 1 at the 34. That extra 5 yards may push a couple coaches to go for it, which if they get stopped, it's great field position for the opponent. If they make it, it's kind of a little momentum for the offense moving forward. So we'll see if that helps, if that's going to help scoring or not.
I don't want to put you on the spot, and I don't want you to give away too much information, though. I have a feeling you will probably do a video about Survivor going into week 2 from your YouTube channel, which is Kenny White Bet the Gambit. You can follow that YouTube channel as well. But have you looked at Survivor and your strategies, or do you plan to do a standalone video for that?
Yeah, I'll do another video for Survivor. I don't know how many weeks I will do that because obviously with tickets in the competition, I don't want to give away too much, but early in the season, I don't mind. It is a lot of strategy, and you need to make sure that you do look ahead, even though you don't want to because you hate to, because we know in handicapping sports, we want to bet against teams looking ahead, but you have to look ahead in this contest to make sure that you're saving some teams for Thanksgiving and Black Friday is its own week. There's only 4 games, so there's only 8 teams, and you have to pick one of them if you make it that far. So you don't want to use those teams.
It's getting exciting. I love football season. I love the contest. It is already. Well, it was exciting last week, to be honest, and hopefully people did follow your video and follow some of that advice that you gave out. But
I said on the video, if you're in a big contest, don't take the Bengals.
Exactly.
You don't want to if there's a lot of people in it, because a lot of people are, so you get kind of a free play in that spot. And it happened to work very well. Over 35% of most Survivor contests, those entrants were knocked out because of one team.
I do just want to throw out there, Sports by the Book, again, tomorrow morning and Friday morning, short 30-minute shows for Thursday and Friday. And then Saturday, Jeff Parles and I are back here at 8 a.m. before college football, where we will go through as many games as we can and even give out our best plays. On Sunday, him and I are back again, 9 to 10, right before kickoff, where we will do the same thing and hit every single NFL Week 2 game.
And I made sure I changed my times for my show, my podcast, to be an hour before yours, so that I could kind of lead into Sports by the Book for the weekend. I'm 7 a.m. on Saturday and 8 a.m. on Sunday.
And 7 a.m. Monday through Friday. If
7
you are
a.m. Monday through Friday.
If you are up early and you do want to hear about some power ratings and some other great notes there. But I just wanted to get that little note out. Please follow us on social media as well. Sports by the Book. Instagram is Sports by the Book LV. And then we're going to talk a little bit of college football right now, just a couple games. So make sure you follow us for the rest of the weekend if you want more. And then we'll take a quick break, and then we'll do WNBA and baseball before we get out of here. But there's a game that you talked about this morning that I really want to hit on because it did catch my attention, and I think it's worth talking about, and it is Alabama and Wisconsin. So Alabama, pretty big favorite here in this one, even though we saw them struggle against South Florida, and it might just be a South Florida thing. But then on the flip side, Wisconsin has been pretty disappointing. I mean, a lot of high hopes for Luke Fickell there and to change this program, but it's been a very slow process for the Badgers. So what do you have on this game, or any notes that at least you want to talk about?
Well, breaking it down, Kalen DeBoer is the new head coach at Alabama now. Nick Saban is retired and in the booth. talking football. And that's, a good thing for us to listen to him talk about the game and pick up on what he's seeing with his eyeball test. So that's really good. His success, he's been very successful as a head coach. 25-3 at Washington. We saw him take his team to the Final Four. He was very successful at Fresno in 1.5 years, being named the head coach. 12-6 there. He's an offensive guy, offensive coordinator at Indiana and Fresno State. But he's only 2 games in Alabama. It's still a little bit of a learning curve. He's got a great quarterback going out on the road. This is going to be a tough battle because, you mentioned Wisconsin, that they didn't have the greatest year last year. This is a program that has talent, and they always have, and they've always had great coaching, and they've molded their game to the talent that they have. Big, strong offensive linemen, big, strong defensive linemen. They won their games in the trenches, and then they would get a diamond in the rough running back that could run behind those offensive lines. He has talent. He brought in a really good quarterback with Tyler Van Dyke. He's improved the defense because he's a defensive guy, and he's improved the offense. They beat Western Michigan 28-14. They beat South Dakota State 27-13. Nothing to write home about in either one of those games. But this team was probably preparing for Alabama for 3 weeks, and they're ready for this game. This is a Super Bowl type game for this program, but can put them back on the map. This is a very difficult atmosphere to play in. The crowd's going to be loud. I hate to give any home field when the visitor is a far better team, and I do still have Alabama ranked well above them and rated well above them, but there's some home field here for Wisconsin because it's that good. The fans will be crazy, and if you let them hang around into the third quarter when the bounce house is going crazy, this could be an upset and one of the biggest upsets of the week.
So you like the points here with Wisconsin.
Love the points. You're going to give me 2 touchdowns with Luke Fickell. I'm taking it all day long.
I hope you have your book here with your numbers because there are a couple questionable quarterbacks. I'm curious if you can just give us the drop-off between these quarterbacks. So Graham Mertz for Florida Gators had a concussion, missed last week. It's still up in the air whether or not he is going to start, or DJ Lagway, who is their freshman quarterback, top 5-star guy that was expected to get the job next year after Mertz was done. Is there a drop-off between those two? Does it matter which one they start?
Very small because you're right. Mertz has all the experience, but DJ Langway is the future of the program. Their head coach, Billy Napier, has already said he's going to play both quarterbacks. And Langway is going to play in every single game. And the better he does and the more experience he gets, he just may pass up Mertz and be the quarterback. I have a 1.5 point drop off, but what I've read, they'll both play this weekend.
And it is a very tough matchup for them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 3 straight home games. That helps them. No travel, a lot of time to prepare. They played Samford last week after the Miami game. I'm sure they didn't prepare for Samford. I'm sure they were preparing for Texas A&M. So 2 weeks to prepare with no travel, that's a big bonus for Florida.
Let's move to Utah, and they will be playing Utah State, so a little state rivalry there. You said it's really not for the Utes, but Cam Rising, we worry about him. We know he has dealt with a lot of injuries. I think it is in his 6th year, maybe even 7th here, but very good quarterback. So I imagine there has to be a drop-off if we don't see Cam Rising this week.
Yeah, I think it's a 7th year. I think you're right, and there is a major drop-off, 4.5 points with Cam Rising, and I would not argue if you thought it was more, because when you look and see what Utah averaged per game in 2022, like 38 points per game, and last year without Rising for much of the season, they averaged 24 points per game. That's a big drop, and they just came off a win over Baylor, and then they start the Big 12 competition at Oklahoma State next week. You mentioned not much of a rivalry for Utah in this game. I don't think it is, because Utah State's the little brother, but they're very well coached by Blake Anderson. This is a Super Bowl type of game for Utah State, and they looked terrible last week for USC. So the Utah Utes are looking completely past this game.
I'm still waiting for them to score. Can we get a field goal? Maybe just one touchdown.
Once you get on the board, that helps get you a little bit of confidence, and they should be able to do that this week.
48-0 win for the Utes. Could not get there. Taking. I think we took 29.
I took
points.
21.5 with Utah State, and with the information that Rising may not play.
Okay, well, Bryson Barnes is their quarterback, who I made a case for that he would not be intimidated by USC because he did step in for Cam Rising when he was on the Utes. Now he's on Utah State, so that adds a little bit there again. But I'm going to be careful with my Utah State predictions here and pushing certain things. Those are the two that came to mind. Are there any other quarterbacks that you can think of that we may have some injuries going into week 3?
That puts me more on the spot than anything. My memory. That's why I write everything down. I really, looking through my book, it would be hard to say. I don't have any notes on any quarterbacks. I had the Florida quarterback, and I think that's about it. I don't really nothing. Nobody comes to mind that I know is out. So
well, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we'll see if we have any more quarterback updates for you. We will talk about WNBA, and we have baseball. So we will pick the top games on the board and maybe some best bets that we like. This is Sports by the Book. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
South Point offers all the types of entertainment you'd expect at a first-class Las Vegas resort. Did you know our 400-seat showroom is one of Las Vegas's top destinations for live entertainment? Enjoy live performances by classic Vegas entertainers, bands, and today's hottest comedians, plus a rock and dance floor. You can also enjoy live entertainment at the Grand View Lounge, where you'll feel all the vibes of old Las Vegas. Enjoy the music, and if you love to laugh, don't miss The Dirty at 12:30, our very own free comedy show, every Friday night at 12:30 a.m. in the Grand View Lounge. The Dirty is 100% free, so arrive early. Go to southpointcasino.com or call the box office at 77136 for today's performances at the showroom and the Grand View Lounge. When you're ready for your favorite cocktail, stop in and unwind at one of our 7 specialty lounges. There's a bar around every corner, because you're in Vegas, baby. South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Welcome back. This is Sports by the Book here at the South Point studio. Please make sure and subscribe to this YouTube channel, Sports by the Book. We have 10 great shows weekly, 7, one every morning, and then 3 evening shows to get you ready for all your football stuff. All right, we're going to go to WNBA, 3 games on the board. We're going to kind of rapid fire through WNBA and baseball here with about 7 minutes left before we bring in Ryan McCormick to tease and tell you what is going on for Punchline. So Las Vegas Aces playing the Indiana Fever. This will be a top-watched game, I can assure you. The Aces laying 4 on the road, total 179. I don't know if they can make this total high enough between these two teams. We know the pace that the Fever like to play, and we know the Aces can score when they need to. The biggest question mark is Asia Wilson healthy, and will she be playing?
Yeah, the stuff that I read early, Alex, and when she missed the game in New York, is that I didn't think she was playing. They talked about, they were worried about making sure she was 100% for the playoffs. I thought, you got 5 games left. Are you serious? So maybe she's going to be out a while. I took an early lead yesterday. I took 2.5 in the game, thinking that if she's out, I'm making Indiana like 6, so that she's that valuable of a player. But they've come out and said she's probable. The line opened 3.5 at Circa, bet up to 4. It is 4 here at the South Point. And you're right, highest scoring game because, the Aces can run, they score, and the Indiana Fever loves to run and they score. So this could be a fun game to watch. I still don't know how she's going to play. I'm going to lay the money line I have to lay a little higher price, lay the money line to get off my 2.5. And then I'm probably going to end up trying to take 4.5 if I can. I may not be able to. I may just not, just go in with hopefully the Aces win by 1 or 2.
I've got the Aces just a 1-point favorite here on the road because the Fever have been playing so good. So I definitely lean to the points here with the Fever. Next game, really important game for both these teams, Washington and Chicago. It's a pick'em here now at the South Point. Just a little bit ago, Washington was a 1-point favorite. Total 161.5.
Yeah, this is a playoff game. The winner of this maybe put themselves. They have 5 games left. These two are going to be jockeying back and forth for this position, the 8th spot in the playoff. So it's a playoff game. The last time they played, not long ago, August 28th, Washington won at Chicago 74-70, 144 points. I thought this total was very high at 161.5. I went under that last night, and I thought it would come down. I bet a little extra. I played it a couple different places, thinking that maybe I could have a little bit of a middle because I thought this would come down to around 157 or 158. It hasn't yet.
The last game on the board, nothing for either of us in this one. It's Seattle Storm at Los Angeles. Storm minus 13.5, total 161.5. But we're going to get to some baseball before we get out of here. I just want to start with asking you if there is any games that have jumped out to you or that you have already bet. I know the Pirates win 2 in a row. That game has already started, though, for Game 3 against Miami. Braves win big yesterday. We did have that one, and the Padres got us home. Any early bets?
I love day baseball, and the Chicago White Sox host Cleveland Guardians today. Matthew Boyd is back in the rotation for the Guardians after a long stint on the DL, and he is a really good pitcher. He's well above average, and Chicago cannot hit lefties. It's like if they were in a boat, they couldn't hit water if they fell out of the boat. That's how bad they are. The Guardians offense has struggled as well, and Davis Martin, the right-hander for the White Sox, has pitched nice. I like him. I like what I've seen in him so far. ERA 3.29. If you just look at that, you know that he's kept his team in games, 38 innings, and he's done that so far. So against a weak lineup like the Guardians and Matthew Boyd going for Cleveland against a bad lineup, that was an underplay for me. Like the Dodger game over once again tonight, not because of the heat, more because the offenses and both teams are swinging it against two pitchers that are average big league pitchers, and you could almost consider them slightly below average. Jordan Hicks, a lefty for the Cubs. Dodgers crush lefties. Bobby Miller pitching for the Dodgers has been miserable, a 7.79 ERA, a 165 whip. So I really like that one. One more total. Atlanta and Washington under the 8.5. Max Fry has been lights out, and Jake Irvin has been really good. Both those two guys, high ground ball numbers. I always say that it's hard to hit a ground ball over the fence, and if you get a lot of ground balls, you don't get those 3-run home runs to help games go over.
I will just say, if you are watching and you saw the Cleveland and the White Sox game at 7.5, even though he gave out 8, that just changed here at the South Point, but there are some 8s out there, so make sure you shop around, of course, as always, to get the best number.
Yeah, I didn't look. I didn't get an updated line. My line that I have is from 7 a.m. in the morning or 6.
It just happened.
Did it?
Yeah, within like the last 15 minutes. So.
Yeah, I see a lot of 7.5s, and rightfully so. I what did I make that number? I think I have it at 6.5. Yeah, I'm at 6.5 on that game because this is the weakest offensive game of any two teams combined. It's the White Sox and Guardians.
One more matchup I want to ask you about, and that's because we talked about it yesterday, and I messed up on Lugo's name, and then, of course, he has the game of his life against the Yankees. Yankees took game 1. They won 10-4, and then Kansas City 5-0 against New York. I think it was the first time ever. We have a fun graphic coming for you on punchlines, but first time ever a team has done that to Yankees, held them to, I don't know how many hits, but no runs, so many strikeouts, no walks. First time ever. So
Yeah.
that was very interesting. Now we've got Cole Reagans on the mound against Luis Heel. Anything you like in this one or that jumps out to you for game 3 in this series?
Very good pitching matchup. Reagans has had a very nice year for the Royals, a 3.33 ERA, 1.15 whip, but Luis Heel has matched those numbers, and he has had a tremendous year for the Yankees. He has been the guy that they need. He's going to get you into the 6th inning, and with 3 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts, that type of game in and game out from him. He's been that way all year, but my numbers are very tight on this game. So I have a small lean to the Royals, but a 10-cent edge is not big enough to make a bet on. The best pitching matchup, I think, of the night is the Padres and Mariners, and that's Brian Wu, who's been Cy Young Award stuff. He doesn't have the innings. If he did have the innings, his numbers are Cy Young Award stuff. 2.36 ERA, a 0.85 whip, and he's going against Michael King, who has had a career year for the Padres. So that one very low, but they've made the adjustment on the total, and the total is right there. I win with the Padres yesterday, talking about them, and win with the Dodgers over. Yesterday was a good baseball day. Baseball's been getting better because we're getting to these games really mean something now, and we know we're going to get the best efforts out of our teams.
Mariners did put a few runs on the board, though, so maybe they can get their bats going and give Wu some run support in that one. But nothing for us, side or totals. Look, it's basically a pick-em there between those two. Should be a great game to watch, though, on this Wednesday.
The other one's Arizona. As I mentioned, the Diamondbacks are a team that I continue to bet, and they've won 2 in a row now, and I made them a much bigger favorite than what they are. The Rangers, the World Series champs, have struggled, and the Diamondbacks lost to the Rangers last year. Even though they won last night, I think they continue to want to come out and beat that team up and continue to play well. Over the last 60 days, they have the best record in baseball. That's the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Rangers are like, all right, let's get out of this season, get our pitchers healthy, and start again next year. Again, thank you to everybody who is in our chat. Thank you, everybody who is watching. As mentioned earlier, Joey B., Keith, Lyle. And then we've got Frank Nicotero in the chat. That's a lot of fun. And Dean Hilt, who is a regular for Punchlines. Speaking of Punchlines, just 2 hours away, you're going to have to move over to that YouTube channel, Punchlines FN, but you will find myself with Frank Nicotero and Ryan McCormick. Looking forward to this episode. Ryan, what else do we have coming up in 2 hours?
Yeah, so we do have some more Alex White. We will have Hump Day homers, being that it is a Wednesday, and we do have some baseball games left on the schedule. We will be talking about stuff in Major League Baseball, a couple record-breaking things that happened last night on some long balls, as well as some stuff in the National Football League, looking at trends in Week 1, going to Week 2, and then stuff in the WNBA, and just stuff all around the sporting world. So you got to tune in at noon on at Punchlines FN on YouTube. It'll be a fun one.
Another thing that'll be a lot of fun, I'm sorry if I missed it, and Ryan did say it, we all filled out the sheet about 2 months ago against the spread on where we were for Week 1. We are going to open those up, see how we did, kind of blindly betting NFL Week 1.
Oh, nice. That'll be fun to watch today.
2 hours here at noon, so make sure you switch over and go to that. You'll be back, well, you have your own show. You'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m., and then Friday you will be back for Sports by the Book remotely at 9 a.m.
Correct. I had a half-hour show on Friday, 9 to 9:30. We'll be taking you through the daily schedule as quickly as I can because there'll be a lot to talk about on a Friday heading into a college football Saturday and the NFL.
A lot to talk about. I mean, we have a great college football game tomorrow as well as the Bills and the Dolphins. 2 great, maybe 3 football games in college on Friday, and then another really fun weekend. Again, thank you all so much for watching us here on Sports by the Book. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on social media, and just continue watching and continue commenting. We appreciate all of you. For Alex White, Kenny White, we'll talk to you guys very soon. Have a great rest of your day.